In the previous video, we looked at the second creational pattern, the factory pattern. In this video, we're going to take a look at the adapter pattern and see it in action. From time to time, we will find ourselves in a position where we need to make two incompatible frameworks speak to one another. When we find ourselves in this situation, we'll utilize the adapter pattern. The adapter pattern allows us to integrate components from third-party frameworks or legacy APIs whose source code we don't have access to in our code. Feel free to download the project files for this video at this video's resource page. Let's begin by opening up the starter application. Here we have a fake music player in the form of a console application. If we run our application, we'll see some song objects appear in the console window. If we open our main.swift, we'll see an object named player which has two music collections loaded into it. So we're effectively merging two music collections into a player object, and then below, we're printing the objects out using a for-in loop. Let's open our song.swift file. Here we have a song object that contains three properties. Then below, we have a protocol that represents our playlist data source. Any class that implements this protocol will have an array of songs, an arrange by name function, and a random function. We can think of these types of classes as a collection of songs. Next, we'll open datasource.swift. At the top, we have our data source, which will act as our base class. Data source implements our playlist data source protocol. So, any future class that inherits from data source will automatically implement the playlist data source protocol. Down below, we've got two music collections, one for electronic music and one for rock music, and they both inherit from the data source base class. These classes just populate the inherited songs array with songs from that given genre. Finally, we look at our player class. Here we see a class that contains a property named collection that holds an array of any item as long as it implements playlist data source. We've got an initializer that takes any number of playlist data source objects. We have a playlist variable and a randomize variable. So we have a system here that allows us to add collection after collection of music to our playlist, as long as the collection conforms to playlist data source. But what happens if we're given a collection from a different system? Of course, maybe we have access to the new collection's source code, and we can make the necessary changes for it to adhere to our protocol. But what if we don't have access to the source code? This is where the adapter pattern comes into play. We can create an intermediary adapter class that enables our two APIs to work together seamlessly. First, let's add the incompatible music collection. Let's add a new class, and we'll name it Imported Music Collection. We'll add a class named Recording, which I'll paste in now. This class has three properties and an initializer. We can see that the file types are all NSString, as opposed to our string file types in our other collections. Next, we'll add another class, which will be named Imported Music Collection. We'll just add them in the same file for brevity. I'll paste in the code for this class. We see that it contains a playlist that is of type dictionary with ints as our key and our recording type as our value, an initializer that populates our playlist, and finally, we've got a getPlaylist function at the bottom. So this code is clearly incompatible with our other music collections. We've got different types, and let's just say for this exercise that we don't have access to the code in these classes. So how do we integrate? The answer is that we build an adapter. Let's add a new file, which we'll name Import Adapter. We're going to add a class named Import Adapter, and I'll add the code for this class. First, notice that we're implementing our playlist data source protocol, making it eligible to be passed into our player class. Then, we've got a private constant that holds our imported music collection, which we initialize in our initializer. To satisfy our protocol, we've got to add our arrange by name and random methods below. The important part is our songs variable. Here's where we're actually adapting our imported playlist of our recordings with our song struct. Notice that we're fetching our record instance's name, album, and artist values and casting them from NSString to string. Now that we've adapted our imported music collection, we can now update our collections in main with our new import adapter collection. We can run our application to see that we've successfully added it to our collection. In this video, we've adapted two incompatible APIs using the adapter pattern. In the next video, we'll look at the second structural pattern, the facade pattern.